The doctor warned her not to have this baby, but she didn't listen. All babies born are a gift from God, a treasure unto this world that restore our faith in all that is good. A woman falling pregnant is most often a time for celebration, a time where the entire family can get excited over welcoming a new life and envisioning the bright future that is to come. Of course, few pregnancies are without their trials. Delivering a newborn can be fraught with risk. Even with all the wonders of modern science, things can and do go wrong. Everyone's freaking out, saying microcephaly is a death sentence, and it's not. Even if you had to go through it, your child can survive. Your child can live a good quality life, he told RentBookMagazine.com. Megan Jacobs and her husband, Craig, were thrilled to be expecting their first baby, a boy they named Luke. His due date was March 8, 2018, and at first the pregnancy went relatively well, but a major complication was looming, one that would cause an on-call doctor to advise abortion and could cause Luke to be a premature baby. The young couple, however, refused to terminate and did all they could to save their baby boy. At about 11 weeks, I had some traumatic bleeding, Jacobs told Live Action News. I had run across the school. I'm a teacher to get something to a kid before he got on the bus, and I had severe bleeding. I went to the ER, and they told us without doing an ultrasound or anything that we had had a miscarriage. I called my OBE as soon as we left the ER, and she said to come straight to her office, and she met us there, and after explaining to her that I wasn't having any cramps or pain, she said let's do an ultrasound, and that's when we saw that the baby was fine. Relieved and elated that their baby's heart was still beating strong, the couple went home and Jacob spent the weekend on bed rest. She returned to the doctor on Monday, where she learned that her cervix was shorter than it had previously been. Another week of bed rest seemed to solve the problem, and all was well. But then, at just 15 weeks, Jacobs felt the pain of repetitive twinges. A trip to the doctor showed that she had dilated 3, advised that she continued with bed rest, but within a few days, doctors found that the pregnancy membranes were now protruding. A specialist confirmed the news. Jacobs underwent an emergency transvaginal surface to stitch up her cervix. The specialist who performed the procedure didn't offer much hope, and the surgery caused severe bleeding, but overall the surgery seemed to be a success. However, within a day, Jacob suspected she was leaking amniotic fluid. I went back to the hospital and my doctor said the membranes were back was closed, but membranes were out, explained Jacobs. I stayed in labor and delivery, and the fluid looked good around the baby. My doctor was out of town, and the on-call OB suggested that we terminate because it was going to happen anyway. But my husband and I knew that wasn't an option for us. We believed there was still a chance as long as our little boy was still in there. If the loss of Luke was going to happen, it was going to happen. We weren't going to make it happen. Jacobs remained in the hospital on bed rest for 3 more weeks until suddenly and without any signs of infection, she went into labor because of an infection of the placenta due to prolonged exposure. Premature baby boy William Luke Jacobs was born at 18.5 weeks on October 10, 2017. He had a heartbeat during labor, but unfortunately did not survive the birth process and was stillborn. Our little boy was absolutely perfect, said Jacobs. It was amazing to see at 18.5 weeks he had every single thing you and I have: fingernails, eyebrows. He even had features. My husband's long, flat feet. He had my nose. It was amazing to see that at such an early gestation, he still looked so perfect, and he was a lot bigger than I expected him to be too. From his head to the bottom of his feet was 3 or 4 inches past my wrist, so it was amazing to see the development. Even at 19 weeks, the wonder and awe at the beauty of their baby boy were met with the pain of having lost him. But the couple held on to their faith in God and used the strength they received through prayer to get through the worst moments of their lives. Jacob said that there was one particular Bible passage that helped: Philippians 4:6-7, which reads, "Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." Those words would bring her great comfort as she faced the loss of Luke. I hum onto that verse a lot as we were pregnant, said Jacobs. I thought of it at first, that if I'm not anxious and I trust God, then He's going to give us Luke. But after we lost him, I realized that the verse doesn't say he's going to give us our prayers, but that he's going to give us peace. That peace would be exactly what Jacobs received. When the time came to say goodbye to Luke, the hardest moment was when they had to take him away. I lost it, said Jacobs. I broke down and I said, God, give me your peace. And the sobs were taken away so fast it made me sick. I just couldn't cry anymore. I've never felt God's power like I did in that moment. That was a life-altering moment. The hardest thing a parent can ever face, and then to feel peace. There's no other explanation than God's peace. After Luke was born and Jacobs had seen firsthand how developed he was at 18.5 weeks, she began researching the legal age limits on abortion and was shocked to learn that abortion is legal through all 9 months of pregnancy in the United States. After looking into it and realizing that in almost every state it is legal to abort past 20 weeks, that was just mind-boggling to me, she explained. I knew that abortion was legal, but I assumed that it was just up to 12 weeks. And so to think that there are abortions being done on children that are his size and bigger, that's a person, that's a human, not just a fetus or a clump of cells. They have everything you and I have, just on a smaller scale. So that was hard for me to imagine and understand. At first, Jacobs and her husband weren't going to share images of Luke. They had friends and family who found it too difficult to view pictures of the baby they had lost. But then Jacobs realized she wanted to share Luke's pictures. After all, she was a mother. And what mother doesn't want to share her baby's pictures? Realizing that Luke's life has touched so many lives, she began to see God's purpose for him in sharing his picture and his story. We want more than anything to continue his purpose. I felt very strongly that God had a purpose for him on this earth, and I think his purpose has continued in reaching people, said Jacobs. I feel that his purpose is for people to see the life that it is, even at 19 weeks, and the person that's there, and in sharing his story and our journey. We couldn't have made it. We wouldn't be where we are if we didn't have God's strength to help us through the process. He's carried us through the whole process, and I hope through this we're able to minister to others who deal with this grief, because there's not a textbook on it. There's no way to know, how do I handle this? How do I deal with it? It's just a process that's different for everybody. Having other people who had gone through a lost stillbirth and infant loss, having them support us in saying, I understand, I've been there, was a huge benefit to us, so we want to also be that for other people. Jacobs says her husband has been her rock through the entire experience, but he has also learned that it's okay for him to be emotional as well. They're seeing a grief counselor together in hopes of handling the loss in the healthiest way possible for each of them. They also continue to hold on to the hope of having more children and have taken steps to make sure that happens. Jacobs was diagnosed with an incompetent cervix, and typical protocol is to have a vaginal cerclage placed at about 12 weeks gestation, which is then followed by bed rest. That offers a 75% success rate of making it to 24 weeks. Not wanting to relive what they had already been through, the couple searched for options and they found one. In February, Jacobs and her husband traveled from their home in Georgia to Chicago for a surgery called transabdominal surplus. This surgery would mean that any future children would have to be delivered by a C-section, but it also offered a 95% success rate of carrying her children to full term. It's a surgery that very few doctors perform. Those odds seemed much more helpful, said Jacobs, and it could be done before we were pregnant rather than waiting. It does mean I have to have a C-section for all pregnancies, but that to me wasn't a huge deal. If we wanted more than one baby, we have to repeat the vaginal surface every time. The risk of having a premature baby and the NICU were just kind of daunting to us. The couple can try to get pregnant whenever they are ready, and they have high hopes that barring any other complications, they will not lose their future children due to incompetent cervix issues.